Your Pharmacy Career Podcast, proudly brought to you by Ravens Recruitment, Australia's pharmacy recruitment agency, spotlights the myriad of career paths available to pharmacists. Your host, Christy Lee Patterson, and her esteemed guests will be sharing invaluable career advice that you can implement at any stage of your career journey.
Welcome to Your Pharmacy Career Podcast. I'm your host, Christy Lee Patterson. In today's episode, we have a remarkable guest joining us today, someone whose journey in the world of pharmacy has been deeply intertwined with their personal experiences. She's a seasoned pharmacist, an advocate, and a business owner, and the 2022 PSA Victorian Pharmacist of the Year. But her story doesn't stop there. Our guest today, Yvette, also known as the Spectrum Pharmacist, is not only a dedicated healthcare professional, but she's also a loving mother who has navigated the unique challenges and rewards of raising children on the spectrum. She's the driving force behind the Spectrum Pharmacist initiative and is working on a very exciting All My Health One app aimed at empowering neurodiverse individuals to simplify healthcare. Join us as we dive into Yvette's incredible journey, her advocacy work, and her vision for a more inclusive healthcare system. Yvette, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much, Christy Lee. That was a lovely intro. I really appreciate that.
I'd love for you to give us a little brief intro on yourself and how did you get to the Spectrum Pharmacist?
Yeah, so my journey started probably a lot like other pharmacists. I did some work experience when I was in year 9 and probably never left pharmacy ever since. I've worked in community pharmacies. I've done everything from locating to managing roles and professional services roles. I'm a HMR accredited pharmacist, so really love doing that. Love going into people's homes and getting to know them and in that beautiful space that you can kind of really do a deep dive into what's really happening in their own world. I've worked in aged care, which opened my eyes. I wasn't quite sure about it to start with, but no, it was a really powerful role actually to be able to not only get to know the staff and some of the residents there, but actually to be part of their quality use of medicines. Been a hospital pharmacist for over a decade now and absolutely love it. And then I also do some work with Pharm Online, which is a telehealth pharmacist service here in Australia that was started by Anna Barwick. And that's probably, around about 2020, when I was coming home from work and thinking, right, we can't interact with people the way we used to. Let's try and, branch out. And at that time we were having some extra difficulties at home with the boys that the Spectrum Pharmacist came about. Still enjoying learning every day and interacting with people and being able to educate and improve that awareness not only for healthcare individuals but for the general population, which I think is really important.
I'd like to start maybe unpicking the Spectrum Pharmacist part.
Absolutely. Changed my world. My eldest son is now 14, so he was diagnosed when he was 3.5. So obviously quite young, but in the grand scheme of things, we probably knew from 2.5, there were certain quirks, and it was a way for him to kind of be able to say he's a little bit quirky. So I apologise if that offends anyone, but they're a little bit quirky sometimes and sounds nicer. I hate the word deficit. Absolutely should be outlawed. But anyway, I think, having someone in your immediate family, or whether it's, your own children or your partner or a loved one, it does change your perspective and how you interact in the world in general. You look at things very differently, even to the point of walking into a pharmacy or a supermarket and just realizing just how overwhelming those spaces are. So, we took a really different lens on how the world functions and what opportunities there are for someone who does identify on the spectrum.
Yes, I totally agree. When I first went through university and was a pharmacist in community pharmacy, I'd never really thought about the space of what a pharmacy it is and how people interact with it. Overwhelming spaces, and a lot of pharmacies can feel quite overwhelming for people that are neurodiverse. If you are a pharmacy owner or a pharmacy manager, think about how your space is designed.
I managed a community pharmacy in Geelong for quite a few years, and I look back now, like it was a big pharmacy and there was always lots going on, and we had the cosmetics ranges and all the perfumes and things. That would have been the most overwhelming scenario to kind of walk through, and you had to walk past all of that to get to the dispensary, which was towards the back of the shop. And you're right, like the lighting and even all the signage, because it's all about your brand, and you're making sure that all your aisles are all marked out nicely, and to most people it looks really pretty and it's bright and eye-catching. But I look at it in a really different lens now, and sometimes I walk into shops and even I get a bit cringy, and I kind of turn around going, yeah, no, it's just too much on some days. And I'm not autistic, I don't have that sensory overload. But I certainly do notice a lot more now. There are just some places where my sons, they'll go in, but they certainly start to shut down a little bit more, and we're like, right, let's get in and get out, and off we go. But it would be really great. Like the supermarkets have got quiet times now, and they dim their lights a little bit more, and the music. So it'd be really great if a community pharmacy would take that on board. So hopefully, if there's someone who wants to be the trailblazer there, we'll jump on board with them. Different perspective completely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing, having more people share their stories and what it feels like. I have recently been diagnosed with ADHD myself, and it has been a really big learning curve, because just my understanding of the condition itself, I will be honest, I actually had stigma associated with it. I even going through university, I never picked up that this was me. They're like, didn't you pick this up when you learned about it? And no, I did not pick it up. And so there's definitely still that bias of handling medication requests. Sometimes people are late, or maybe they forget their medicines, or they find it really hard to get to an appointment. And these are things I never considered. A lot of the neurodiverse medications are S8 medications, and so there's a lot of regulations around that. I used to get frustrated when people want them early, or like they've missed a whole heap, or they're not taking it what I thought was as prescribed, like they're not taking it every day. But then learning about it myself, it's so unique. It's very much trial and error, and that was something that I didn't understand. Also the side effects as well. As pharmacists, we pride ourselves in being the medicines experts and understanding side effects, but thinking about them as how do they affect the person, and something that might seem very minor side effect can actually be quite a big side effect for the person. So I'd love to hear your experience with that with your children, and managing those medicines. And what was your experience with some of the pharmacists when you would get the medication for your sons? I'd love your honesty, because this is about learning.
I have to admit that I've had some terrible experiences with some community pharmacies over this journey. When I look back on it, it's that, without that experience and especially that knowledge, that I can understand why probably some of the interactions happened. But we lived in Tasmania for about 3 years, and their rules are 30-day rules. And at that point, medicine came in quantity of 30. So I was literally giving the last tablet to the boys and having to make sure I got to the pharmacy during that time. And if they were out of stock, your heart just jumps in your chest. And there was a couple of times where they didn't have stock, and I'm running around and trying to find medication. They're going, oh, you've been to so many different pharmacies today, because, you stamp on. I'm like, I'm just trying to get this medication, or you try and get it early because, unfortunately we have days that we're not our best selves, whether we're on the spectrum or not. And, we happen to drop medicines and step on it. And or, we think we've taken them and then we realize, no, they went in the bin, or, and scenarios when if someone you talk to your community pharmacist about that, and it might be your blood pressure medication, in general terms, I go, oh, yep, I understand. Things happen, day to day. It's just life. When it comes to especially stimulants, there is a lens there, and unfortunately there is still that stigma there. Like it wasn't actually an easy decision for myself and my husband to put our boys on stimulant medications when it got to that point with their ADHD, and even as a pharmacist, you get some education at university, but nowhere near the amount that we need. So I had to, really dive deep and do a lot of research myself, but the stigma surrounding it is still really prevalent, and that's something that I really want to, try and advocate, that these individuals, they've got this chronic lifelong, condition that when we think about neurodevelopmental condition, there is a significant cognitive and, emotional and social impact on all areas of their health and their life, that I think an elevation of compassion and understanding would be really absolutely phenomenal to see, a lot more so, but we're working on it. As for side effects, we started the traditional route of, the immediate release Ritalin and gradually moved up, and that worked out really well, and went to Ritalin LA. That at that point my son couldn't swallow capsules, so we were opening up the pellets and putting it on a spoon and taking it that way. And when we took it into school, when we moved to Tassie, because where we were in Geelong, they'd gotten used to it, and he'd started, his kind of medication journey there. And we went to Tassie, and I had to explain to the school, there's a spoon in here and the medication. And they looked at me like I was crazy, sort of thing, going, why are you bringing a spoon? But, luckily my son was quite good that he didn't spill it too often, but sometimes pellets ran away. Got to the point that he's a really fast metabolizer, and so we changed to Vyvanse, and I thought, right, this is going to be the gold. We've got things sorted now. It's going to be 1 tablet a day. Let's try and change that. And within less than a week, he was sitting in front of the TV in absolute tears. There was ads on, and I'm like, what is going on, buddy? And he's like, I can't stop crying. I feel so sad. Everything feels so real. And I've got this, burnt into my brain. This, I think he was about, I would have been 10 or 11 at the time. And here I am giving a medication to my little boy that I was thinking was going to, make life so much easier for him and eliminate all these barriers that I thought. And then he's sitting in front of the TV and just absolutely bawling his eyes out. And I'm just, oh my God, what have I done, sort of thing. And as soon as we stopped the Vyvanse, it's amazing that side effect. So, thankfully we haven't had too many other horrible side effect stories. I do get a lot of questions in regards to the nausea. A lot of people, especially children, have got really sensitive gut linings, and if they've got additional sensory needs, their dietary intake might be really quite limited, and whether it's specific foods or textures and smell. So a lot of medications, obviously, those side effects that we kind of go, oh, here's the list in the CMI, and these are, things that you may experience. Well, they're probably more likely to experience. So let's start talking about them and make them really aware. And what can we do to prevent them rather than, go the other way around is something that I kind of focus on. But
yeah, I think it's important for pharmacists to understand the impact of individual side effects on the person. I see them as a holistic person. And I'd also would love to know what your thoughts are on, I guess, pharmacists that maybe might want to hire someone who is neurodiverse, or they don't realize they've hired someone that's neurodiverse?
Every person, like you said, is unique, and we all do things in certain ways and have our particular set of, we like clean benches, or we're good with mess, or we're great communicators, or, we need extra reminders. And I think, finding out in your pharmacy, if you are the manager, where's your strengths for each of your team members, and what do they feel most comfortable in? Like, there's nothing worse than having someone who just, loves that detail and really strives and puts processes in place, or might be really good with policies and procedures, or the details of Webster checks. You want to advocate for those strengths, and then they're going to feel more empowered in the workplace. But you also need to consider, right, well, do this scenario that this pharmacist who employed this intern said, they've said they need extra breaks. How do I work that in? I'm like, good. They've identified that community pharmacy can be an overwhelming space, and there's going to be certain times that you just go, right, as much as I need all hands on deck, maybe it might just be, do you need a 5-minute break, and make that as part of, it is more than fine if you feel that you're getting overwhelmed, or, whether it be noise or, whatever it is, that you can kind of step away for a few minutes and regroup, and then be able to represent and get back to work. So as much as we all like to think that we're great at all things, there's always something that we're extra talented in. And, if you're a manager, find out where those talents lie and where those passions lie. You might all of a sudden find someone who is really, that detailed focus, and they can write policies and implement all sorts of things that are amazing for your pharmacy. And then you've got another pharmacist who just loves being out on the floor and talking the talk. They're going to be a great yin and yang, but they're going to work together in this phenomenal way that you're going to get these great outcomes. If you're working with someone who maybe is not, whether they're undiagnosed or they've not disclosed, because you don't have to, there's no rules that you have to disclose. If you're a manager or a team leader, I'm hoping that you've got a good enough relationship and an open relationship that you can kind of look at your individual team members and go, wow, they're really good at X, Y, and Z, and they may be not so good at A, B, and C. Well, let's focus. Well, is it because they don't know the A, B, and C options, or is it because they just really feel uncomfortable in it? So I'm hoping more and more individuals that do identify whether they're diagnosed or undiagnosed can start to feel more empowered to be able to say to an employer, look, this is where my strengths lie, and these are the challenges. I'm not saying that, these challenges prevent me from doing, parts of my role, but perhaps maybe more of my role can be focused on the areas that I feel that I'll thrive and give you the most value. But I certainly like the idea of, building in those extra breaks that just mean someone can kind of decompress as such and let that mind semi-settle as much as maybe an ADHD mind can, because I know it's really hard. But just giving someone the chance to go, look, this is what I want to do. I love pharmacy. These areas, in other words, freak me out a little bit. We're not going to get any value out of anyone being in a comfortable situation. You're more likely going to lose a great employee rather than, make them try and do something that they're just not comfortable with. So,
yeah, I think that's really great advice, regardless of if they're neurodiverse or not.
Exactly.
Especially even talking about breaks. Community pharmacies, you're on your feet all day. Professional burnout is something that's happening. That's rampant. But I'd love to now kind of jump back to your career in hospital pharmacy. And you said that you love it, which is great. I love hearing when people they found what they love to do. And so for someone like myself, I've the only experience I've had in hospital pharmacy was my 4 weeks of placement at uni. Maybe for those younger pharmacists, or maybe pharmacists that are looking for a career change, what draws you to hospital pharmacy, and why do you love that so much?
Yeah, so going through uni, I was the same. I'd done my placement and I loved the placement. I went to Westmead Children's Hospital. Still remember some of the pharmacists by name there, and it was just a really good experience. But when it came time to do my registration, I'd been working in community, and I'm like, yep, no, this is where I'm settled. And it probably wasn't until I did my accreditation for home medication reviews and got more involved in that I realized that a lot of those clinical skills and that attention to detail that my brain loves, I wasn't probably getting enough of that in my community pharmacist role.
Now, we are kind of running out of time. I feel like I could speak to you like for days. We could probably unpick so many different areas that you've mentioned, just from pharmacists not being involved in the care team for people that are neurodiverse, and trying to understand how pharmacists can help there, understanding the medicines on the spectrum and how they impact the person, and then advice for employers wanting to hire or maybe have hired people with neurodiverse skills. The advice that I'm kind of hearing from you, and what I would also give, is everyone's unique anyway, and it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, whether it's hospital or community pharmacy. Sometimes it's when it's busy, especially in community pharmacy, I can't speak for hospital, but it can turn into a bit of a production line. It's really busy, especially around safety net season.
Oh, yep.
Get them in, get them out, and it's just full on. But sometimes I think that as pharmacists, we put the pressure on ourselves to do things really fast. If we just take the time to understand each individual person that's coming in. When you mentioned about hospital pharmacy, they're at their worst. Well, even in community pharmacy, like they're coming in most of the time because they're sick or they're not well or something's going on. I'm just being mindful of that, and I guess setting those boundaries a little bit with the customers to say it's going to be XYZ time, or and if you communicate that, I find that customers are pretty happy to wait a little bit longer. And that advice around making sure that people can have enough breaks, and think about the lighting in your store or the sounds. But before we wrap up, I do want to ask a little bit of info about this All My Health One app. So I am very interested in digital health technologies, and so I know you probably can't say too much because it is a work in progress, but if you could cover off what this is, so our listeners can stay tuned.
So this is my 2023 kind of project. The idea behind All My Health is a one-stop app for the day-to-day things with appointments and prescription reminders, but it'll also have real-time monitoring. Sometimes you just need, those reminders to go, look, things aren't going so well. It might be 5 questions and or a little sentence to kind of go, look, this is what's happening. So when you do get a chance to speak to your healthcare team, you've got that information there rather than trying to remember what happened last week. It'll interface with your GP, your community pharmacist, your allied health, but it's your information, so you're in control of it. If you go to hospital, there'll be a template that can be downloaded that has all the core information. I don't know how yet, whether it's a QR code or something to be able to go, look, this is who I am. Not only this is my medical conditions, but these are the things that can help me in these scenarios. It's a big grand plan. I'm not sure how I'm going to pull it off just yet. I'm determined to, because I can see the value in how it will help my boys. So that's it. We'll see.
How exciting. I can't wait to see how it develops. So it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Lastly, some takeaway points is, for maybe pharmacists early in their career that maybe are neurodivergent themselves. Don't be afraid to, I guess, speak up and tell your management team or employers. You don't have to disclose your condition, but don't be afraid to let them know what your strengths are. Like, that's actually a great thing, as employers want to know that. For those pharmacists that are employing people, and you may know or may not know, just being mindful that everyone is an individual, and by working towards their strengths is a great thing. I know you want to develop their weaknesses and get them to grow, like that's really important, but you also don't want to force someone too hard into things that they're not good at and not take advantage of the things that they are good at, because as you said, then sometimes you can lose some really great people. That's a really good take home for me. And I think for people that don't know much about neurodiverse conditions, just start reading about it. Knowledge is power. Speak to people like Yvette, hit her up on LinkedIn and speak to her. There's a few other of us around as well. Don't be afraid to reach out and seek some advice from others, and do that extra learning to really understand what it feels like for someone with neurodivergent skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Add it to your CPD plan for sure. Even if you go, right, I want to learn a little bit more about ADHD. It's great that you might know that, there's stimulants out there, but what else do you know about it, and how can you then put that learning into practice and make a difference? And your eyes will open. It's that penny drop moment. You just go, oh, wow, okay, I understand more now. And that level of compassion and understanding will flow on, and your customers will be ever grateful for it. So,
You've been listening to Your Pharmacy Career podcast, brought to you by Ravens Recruitment. Don't miss our next episode, where we continue to explore the multifaceted world of pharmacy careers. Make sure to subscribe and share.